Welcome to In My Opinion for Akiba's Trip. In Akiba's Trip, you play as an otaku at the wrong end of the deal. After being turned to a synthesis, basically a vampire, by a mysterious corporation, you are then saved by a mysterious girl. You then head back to Mogra, the base of the Akiba Freedom Fighters, a group sworn to protect their precious Akiba. With a high increase of other synthesizers, people having their energy drained, and you being constantly attacked, it's up to you and the other freedom fighters to solve the mystery of what exactly is going on behind the scenes of Akiba and how to save it. Let's also find out who is this mysterious girl and her connection to everything. The story itself, while not long, is still a fun and comedic romp, especially with the colorful cast of characters, such as your childhood friend Telko.
We're still friends. Nothing's changed about that.
The famous pop idol Rin,
to present my newest song, Eternity of Earth.
your weird children of his sister Nana,
Broski, you're alive.
and Kaidi, a foreigner who likes to wear maze outfits. Sorry if I butchered any of those names.
Did you want to buy something too?
You get the feeling these characters are close, whether it's sitting down and watching anime together,
That's a lot slower than I expected.
or joining them in a cosplay festival. It's a good old fun time with 4 different routes to explore, and even a little fan service.
Give me back my clothes, now!
Akiba's Trip is a beat-up, in which instead of beating your enemies to a bloody pulp, you shoot them down to their tidy whities. The enemies have 3 parts of clothing: a top, middle, and low. Your goal is to wear those parts down and rip them right off. The combat itself is pretty simple, and you won't be pulling off some super impressive combos here, but that's not to say it's not fun. It's a strange gratification of pulling someone's clothes off and seeing their reaction afterwards. Plus it's funny. You are also able to dodge and counter enemy attacks quite easily, so it's not a frustrating affair when you're in combat. You can even counter-strike. You yourself can be stripped, so be sure to step away and tidy yourself up when need be. One problem I had with the combats with the camera, since at times it would obstruct your view, and if you are chased next to an exit spot, the camera will stay stuck on that view till you move, which can be annoying. When you start to strip your enemies, you notice a counter go off. The more weakened enemies you have, the more you can strip at one time. Once you hit 6, your QTE prompt gets a bit more faster and the screen changes. This concludes with a pose in which your enemies completely stripped naked. Of course, their no-no areas are covered in a shiny glow. Can't go too far in this game. This allows you to rack up some more XP, take out multiple enemies, and of course, collect their undies. As you can see, most of the time you're not alone on the stripped battlefield. For the most part, your partner AI can handle themselves, and you have semi-control over them. You can either make them go on the offensive and back you up, though if you see them almost stripped bare, you can make them go on the defensive so they can dodge all incoming attacks and tidy themselves up. Each of the female pilots you can bring along with you also have their own super team-up special. Once you fill up the bar by attacking the enemies, you can activate it, thus triggering a cool little cutscene, in which you can put a lot of hurt on a single enemy and stun the enemies around you at the same time. It's a nice way to make sure you're not overwhelmed by the baddies. There are a good amount of weapons to choose from. There's boxing gloves, model guns, giant posters, umbrellas, giant meat, and so forth. As you can see, weapons range from the usual to the unusual. What's also pretty cool is that each weapon type has its own attack animation, so you can always change it up if you start to get bored of one of the weapons. Even some weapons in the same class have different animations, such as the giant posters attacking differently on the giant keyboard. Same goes for their charge attacks. Though I would have liked if every weapon had its own different animation, instead of just some. The more you strip a certain type of clothing, the more your strip meter increases for that type. The higher it reaches, the more of a chance you get to keep that clothing when you strip it off an enemy. This is important since you will be using these clothes as your armor. All these extra clothes will come in handy when you get the ability to start upgrading your weapons and armor thanks to your little sister. And of course, you'll be able to upgrade your partner's equipment as well. Your phone is your go-to device when you want to check on stuff like emails and such. There's even something called Pitter, which is kinda like walking right into a message board, and it's pretty damn funny how close it is to one. You can even add a little personal touch to your phone by adding wallpapers or pictures you get from the game. At a certain point in the game, you get a special phone app that will allow you to start fights with synthesis randomly. Just do a scan with your camera, and whoever's fuzzy is your enemy. You can also scan what items they have if you're looking for a certain weapon or piece of clothing. The customization of the lead and his partner is a nice touch, as you can change any part of their clothes. Later on in the game, you can even unlock the option to change their character models, meaning if you want to add boobs to him, you can. After beating the game, you can unlock different character models, allowing you to do a full gender swap. You can make it as ridiculous as you want, and if you're tired of how your characters walk and strip, you're able to change those as well. You unlock new walk and strip animations after completing certain side missions. Tired of walking around like a normie? Well, now you can float. Default strip animation ain't doing it for you? Well, now you can use your mind and strip those clothes right off their back. Or maybe a hurricane. Or what about moving in with some fancy footwork? This freshens up the game a bit and keeps the combat entertaining to the very end. Since I mentioned side missions, might as well dive into that. After you complete a main mission, a few side missions are unlocked, though you can only tackle 3 at a time. They mainly range from taking pics and stripping people, though the setups are pretty funny and weird, like having to stop some sort of giant idol revolt, or stopping someone's mom from cosplaying as a very familiar looking Vocaloid. There's even one that had you helping a guy get a date by dressing him right and feeding him lines. Then you have your special shut-in sister side missions, in which your lovely little sister Nana will ask for help in such things as getting her cake. Yeah, you would think this is simple, but some people are pretty crazy for their cakes, it seems. Doing these do help you get a special little treat at the end of the game, so be on top of it, since her and some of the other missions do have a time limit. If for some reason you forget what you're supposed to be doing in any of the missions, the game gives you enough info to remind you what to do, making it stress-free. There's also a battle arena if you want to test your skill and earn a lot of dough. You will run into some weird teams, like a bunch of people in bear costumes. Though be warned, if you're lacking in powerful equipment, the later ranks can get a bit long and tough. The overworld map makes navigation easy. It gives you the option to either walk everywhere, or if you're feeling lazy, you can instantly teleport to any part of Akiba that you've been to already. This made going back and forth a breeze. The map also pinpoints where you need to go for either your main mission or side mission, by showing red for side and yellow for main. Well, it wouldn't be Akiba if there weren't any shops, and there's plenty. Here you can buy weapons, clothing, and stat items that can give you a temporary boost. You can also buy books that can speed up the process of upgrading your strip skills, though it can be a bit pricey. There are even music stores that you can listen to the game's soundtrack while your partner sort of dances. From what I can gather, these are based on real shops in Akiba. There are even NPCs that hand out real flyers for some of these shops. There is a dialogue choice system in the game. However, not all the dialogue choices you make affect the overall story. But some of the dialogue you choose will help raise the affection towards a certain girl. There are 4 routes that lead to 4 different endings, 1 for each girl. Except for Kaidi. Sorry to all the maid fans out there. The game will eventually split into a character specific route depending on which girl has the most affection for you.
What? Why me?
You can always check in with Yudo to see which girl likes you to know which route you're heading towards. Once you're in that route, you get 1 or 2 missions that let you more personal time to get closer with that character. Some of the events do unfold a little differently depending on which route you're in. I found this pretty neat as it's fun seeing how each route plays out and seeing the personal moments with each character.
Girly? What do you think? Do you like girly girls?
While most affection choices are pretty obvious, the game still gives you a helping hand, since after you beat the game you can turn on an option that tells you what choice is for what girl. The game isn't some graphics powerhouse as you can tell, but it's still very bright, colorful, and pleasing to the eyes. The character models, while simple, are still pretty good. Same goes for the main cast design, which are nicely done and unique from one another. The game is supposed to be a recreation of Akiba, and while I personally don't know from first hand how Akiba looks, if it's anything like what's shown here, I sure would like to go someday. Character stills are used for most of the character interactions. While they are nicely drawn, there are only about 2 or 3 for each character. I would have liked to see more variation, or at least more use of the in-game character models. With these stills come a lot of dialogue, though pretty much all of his voice. Now this wouldn't mean anything if the English dub work was awful. Thankfully, That's not the case
It's
here.
like this, Rin,
The
and
English dub is
Pop Idol,
great,
Rin.
with each
That's
voice
totally
fitting the
different people.
characters.
Indeed.
The only oddball in the
This Rin
bunch
is
was
far more
Nana,
obvious.
at
That's
first,
because as a
but she
pop
starts to
idol,
fit the more you
Rin's
go
what
along.
might call
If
a
you're not a
zombie.
fan of English voice acting, they also
It's
have
more
the
than
original Japan audio
When a
for
character
you.
goes into girls' love mode, she receives homoerotic bonus points, contributing to her appeal.
The game for the most part runs fine, however there are some frame dips here and there, especially when fighting a large group of enemies. Loading into a new area is quick and painless, though what you will be waiting for is the citizens to load up, since it does take them a while to do that. The game also has a strange glitch in it that if you're almost close to reaching max inventory, it will freeze when you try to go into a store, resulting in you restarting your PS3. From what I played recently, this is still a problem. So on a technical side, the game can be iffy at times, but it never became a major problem and didn't kill my overall enjoyment. So yeah, Akiba Trip turned out to be a good game. Counting all the side missions, battle arena fights, and main story missions, the game took me about 15 to 16 hours to complete. However, as mentioned before, the main story itself is a bit on the short side, but it's still a fun experience with a colorful and likable cast of characters and well done voice work. You also have the 4 different routes to explore that add to replayability, and it helps that there's a new game plus that brings everything over except your level. As said, the frame rate can be iffy at times, and the camera can be a bother once in a while during combat, and then there's that strange item freeze glitch, though that can be remedied by selling your wares to your sister. That aside, the game's very simple but fun combat held my attention, and with the customization options offered in the game, I never got bored. I definitely wouldn't mind taking another trip to Akiba. I hope you enjoyed my thoughts on this game, and for gamer's sake, keep gaming.